Welcome back to the Call on Our Shop podcast. We are live every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. You can download the Call on Our Shop podcast wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Austin, joined by Logan and Sam, the usual suspects. And we're here to talk about the NFL Week 8, talk about Week 9, give our upset picks, a lot of other fun stuff to cover. But Sam, I got to come to you first because if you listened to last week's podcast, you said verbatim, and it's funny that it came exactly true because we're both Jets fans, and you said the most Jets thing would be that we would have a QB controversy on our hands. And Mike White shocked the world, 37 for 45, throwing for 405 yards. And the Jets obviously won, crushing a lot of money line parlays, including my own. So I got to give you your credit. I don't know if you looked into your magic ball, but shout out to you, man.
Yeah, the worst part about it being a Jets fan is that it's only going to get worse, right? I would love for him to just throw a dud on Thursday Night Football against the Colts to just squash this whole controversy and have Wilson come back when he's healthy. But in true Jets fashion, watch him throw another 500-yard, 5-touchdown game this week, and then we won't know what to do. Play the untapped potential of Mike White or a rookie phenom who's not been a phenom. It's awful. But yes, I had some good foresight last week, and glad to be bringing more Jet hot takes this week. For you.
We look forward to hearing it. It was the most Jets thing I've ever seen in a hot minute. So it's good to see Mike White play so well. I think it was very unexpected. My bold prediction was that the Jets would not score a single point last week. So you see how that turned out. A couple of points above my zero prediction. But Logan, what do you think about our Jets? Because I think we're back.
No, I mean it's so funny, being surrounded, cornered by these two Jet fans, these two clowns that just week in and week out tune into their great football product. And sometimes you get surprises. Sometimes the blind squirrel finds the nut, and I think that's what happened with the Jets offense. Can you sustain that for 2 weeks in a row? I put my house on the answer being no, but we'll see, right?
But I would like to point out a stat: the Jets have more wins over 500 teams than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I'm just saying, maybe we're better than the Bucks. That's all I got to say.
For you.
But yeah, you're right. Can the Jets do it again? We'll talk about Thursday Night Football in a little bit. And maybe it was just that teams don't have a lot of tape on Mike White, so they really didn't know what the heck was coming at him. They didn't know he was the best QB in the NFL. But hey, we're going to talk about Week 8. And Logan, I'm going to switch over to you. Give me your biggest takeaway from this week in football, because there's a lot that went down, whether it's Derrick Henry getting injured, which we can talk about a little bit later. But what was your biggest takeaway this weekend?
Yeah, so my biggest takeaway is the NFC power dynamic, and it kind of plays into the trade deadline and the moves that were made and the moves that weren't made. So first of all, you got the Rams, who just absolutely look like a juggernaut offensively. Matt Stafford's lighting the world on fire. Cooper Kupp, Sam, I know you love Cooper Kupp more than life itself. Cooper Kupp is just he's just an absolute beast. Yes, I have your roses, but no, really, it's the Rams getting Von Miller. I mean, what a ferocious defense that is. That strikes fear into every offensive lineman's heart. I mean, seriously. And then you've got teams that didn't make moves that I think really needed to make moves. Tampa Bay Buccaneers did not address their secondary. You saw them get carved up by Trevor Siemian on the weekend. They needed to make some moves, didn't do it. The Packers, I think, could have used some more moves. They didn't make them either. So I think the gap kind of widened. I think it's Cowboys and Rams at the top of the NFC. And I would take them over Tampa Bay and Green Bay. I know, Sam, your cheesehead. I know you're not going to like that.
Well, look, I agree. The Rams are all in, and that was an amazing move on their part. They want to win the Super Bowl this year. And so how do you do it? You get someone like Von Miller, add another piece to an already stacked defense. I agree with you. What I disagree with you on is, why do you think the Packers need to make any more moves? I mean, they just beat what everyone claimed to be the best team in the NFL with a bunch of, D3 wide receivers catching the ball from Aaron Rodgers last week. They're going to get Devontae Adams back. I don't know how you can't have the Packers as the number one team in the NFC right now.
Let me come back to you. It's not necessarily the offensive side of the ball. It's the defensive side of the ball for the Packers that always, it has me nervous, right? There's a lot of DBs on that team that just seem to commit a lot of dumb penalties. Their defensive front is okay, but it's not great. That's what I'm saying. They're going to need some Aaron Rodgers heroics to stay up with a team like, the Rams in come playoff time.
I think it's an interesting, from my perspective, when you look at it, Aaron Rodgers really hasn't looked good in the postseason so far. Like for the past couple, 5 to 10 years, he hasn't really performed there, but Stafford's hardly ever been in the playoffs. So that can make a big kind of difference whenever playoff season comes. But my question is, does Von Miller necessarily make them, that much better. This is a guy that's aging, 32 years old. He struggled with injuries the past couple of years. So does it necessarily make them maybe marginally better, but does it make them, the Super Bowl favorite if they weren't already that?
Well, at the very least, it adds depth, right? I mean, if they, God forbid, take some awful injury in the next couple of weeks, it's good to have Von Miller as a backup there. But, you never know when an aging player is going to, have an amazing couple of game stretch, and that's really all they need. So if Von Miller starts clicking in the postseason, they're going to be glad they didn't versus not do it. I really don't see that much of a, risk on their part. I think it was a 6th-round pick that they had to give for that.
No, they gave up a second and a third.
Oh, you're right. I was thinking of the Melvin Ingram one. But yeah, so that is more capital. So you're going to expect something from him there. But I think it's going to be worth it in the long run.
I think it was a no-brainer trade from the Broncos kind of stand base. I understand if you're a Broncos fan, you probably have grown to love Von Miller from just his career, from being so good in the Super Bowl and so many good seasons. But the fact that they got a 2nd and 3rd round pick, you got to be excited for that. The Rams continue to trade away all their draft picks. It's going to bite them in the butt one of these years, but they're going all in. They got Stafford. There's no reason for them not to kind of push all their chips into one table. So I'm excited to see what, Von Miller can do. He really hasn't had a ton of help on that Broncos defensive line. Bradley Chubb, who they drafted a couple years back, hasn't really been healthy so far through his young season and the young career. So I'm excited for Von Miller. He won't see a double team, which he probably has seen double teams nonstop throughout the past 2-3 seasons. You can't double team him with Aaron Donald coming up the middle.
Absolutely. Von Miller, as a Panther fan, Von Miller is on my mind way too much. He's a game wrecker. And as Sam said, they didn't give up. They gave up 2nd and 3rd round pick, but when you're in win now mode, like the Rams are, no brainer decision.
Yeah, sometimes you got to do that, but I kind of agree with you. I think the Bucs could have addressed some things. The Saints always have had their number for whatever reason in the Superdome. And the Bucs, I think, are one of the teams that needs home field advantage. They're out of any team, I think, over the Packers, over the Rams, over the Cowboys, they need home field advantage. They're really going to have to turn it on because they're a completely different team away from home. When you look at the games they've played at home, granted it was against bad teams, but they've just absolutely obliterated everyone at home. So they're going to need to really turn it on. But Sam, what was your biggest takeaway from week 8? I think you already kind of hinted at it.
Yeah, no, my biggest takeaway was over Thursday night last week. And I talked about it. I've been talking about it, and I'm going to continue to talk about it. Packers had a big time game, right? Down Devontae Adams. Can they beat the Arizona Cardinals? Everyone had crowned them the best in the West, probably even the best in the NFC going into the week. And you know what? Rodgers was Rodgers. He made it happen. He got it done. And that defense that Logan likes to point holes and find the Swiss cheese in held him to 21 points. Which is arguably one of the most prolific offenses. It was a good performance, not a great performance, but they got it done. And I don't know how you can't take that confidence moving into the postseason when they're going to have Devontae Adams back. Hopefully he's back this week. Packers, they're winning the Super Bowl this year. They're going deep in the postseason. I think this is when Rodgers gets it done. Like he hasn't been able to get it done in the past few years.
Yeah, the Packers have had very good regular seasons the last, 2-3 years, and they never can turn it on in the postseason. So I got to see it to believe it. It definitely did not help that the Arizona Cardinals are basically down DeAndre Hopkins the whole game. Besides his first catch of the game, he was out the rest of it. But I guess you could point that the Packers were also missing their star wide receiver. So I can't necessarily say, well, that was the difference maker. But I'd argue on that last play to AJ Green, I guarantee you that's not to AJ Green. That's probably to DeAndre Hopkins. And he probably comes down with it more often than not. So props to the Packers.
Was impactful enough to have that almost go-ahead touchdown that got called back because of the face mask. He did have a role. Granted, it was limited, but it was a bigger role than what Devontae Adams had. So, yeah. If playing tit for tat, they're both down a big receiver, but I think you can make the argument Cardinals had a way bigger, deeper of a receiving core to be able to make up for it. It didn't impact them as much as everyone thought it was going to impact the Packers.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the Cardinals, they have Kyler Murray, and he's obviously not as tenured as a guy like Aaron Rodgers who can get comfortable with the receiver pretty quickly. So I think the loss of Kyler Murray or loss of DeAndre Hopkins might be a little bit more impactful to him just because it's some guy he's played with, practiced with 2 straight seasons. It's the guy he knows and he's developed with. But I get what you're saying. Like you got to be able to win that game against a team that you're at home and they're down their top 2 pass catchers. They're relying on Randall Cobb, and that's all they really had to get into the end zone. The run game looked good though. So AJ Dillon, Aaron Jones both looked pretty good, but a very, very interesting game. Started off Thursday night football with a bang, and then the rest of the weekend followed suit with a bunch of weird upsets. But my biggest takeaway, was that, man, the Chiefs have not looked good and they continue to not look good. You know, you saw them on Monday Night Football against the Giants. Everyone had them as 10.5-point favorites. They're like, take the Chiefs. Come on. They got to bounce back. And they nearly lost that game outright to the New York Giants, who have not really inspired a lot of people recently. Down Saquon Barkley, Kadarius Toney gets injured, Sterling Shepard gets injured, Kenny Galladay's injured. They just did not look good. Now they did the defense. They held the Giants to 17 points. Congrats. That's not saying too much. So I'm scared. I'm not ready to say the Chiefs aren't going to make the playoffs, but I think they're in that scary territory. They're playing your beloved Packers this week. They're sitting at what, 3-4? I don't remember, or 4-4. So they're playing your Packers. I'm scared for the Chiefs. Are you guys have any positive outlook on them?
You know, I think they're actually going to play up, and I can see this being a week where they bounce back and maybe Mahomes gets a little bit of confidence, because you're right, against a sorry Giants team, that should have been the week. They should have just been exercising on that team, and it ended up being a close game. But you know what? Yeah, I would like to see, have full mentality for the Chiefs. I think Mahomes gets his confidence back, and while I like the Packers ultimately, if it ends up being a shootout, Mahomes kind of gets some chemistry, some confidence back. Season's not over yet. There's still a chance, but they got to start making it happen quick if they really want to rally in the second half of the season. Logan, what do you think?
Yeah, it's really weird to see the Mahomes magic kind of dry up, right? You know, all those improv crazy plays that we're used to him making, he's throwing interceptions on them, and I know it's baffling really to see his stat line. Everyone's so used to seeing him 300 yards, 3+ touchdowns. That's the Patrick Mahomes we've all known. But really, you know, what it comes down to, I think defenses have kind of figured out the Chiefs scheme, right? You know, you don't let Tyreek Hill beat you, and you make them try to dink and dunk down low. But you know what, Pat Mahomes, for whatever reason, that offense isn't clicking. You know, a more positive outlook there. It seems like they're more establishing the run game. You got Gore, not Frank Gore, but a different Gore in there. And maybe they'll get CEH back. But I think going forward, the Chiefs is one of those like buy low stocks. I'm definitely not ready to say they won't make the playoffs though.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this is a big matchup against the Packers. I think they're even favored in this game. It's at home, but I don't know how you can pick them with a ton of confidence. I would be willing to bet, we're recording this Tuesday night, that 90-something% of bets will be on Packers money line or spread in that game. So normally when that happens, normally the opposite happens, but I just don't have a lot of faith in the Chiefs so far. And you're right, their defenses are kind of figuring them out. And I forget, and this happened a long time ago, like in the like end of last season, I saw some clips on Twitter of someone posted like Patrick Mahomes dropped interceptions. So they probably had a clips like compiled of like 15 to 20 interceptions last season that were all dropped, and they probably could have been caught. And so maybe those are just getting caught this season and weren't getting caught last season. Either way, they're kind of ruining that magic. Mahomes is just looking like he's running out there for his life and really struggling. But we're going to move past that. We're going to talk. We're about halfway through the season. Like I said, we're on week 9. So we're going to kind of break down all the rookie QBs. We haven't talked about them in a quick minute. So we're just going to give you our quick thoughts on each of them. And we're going to start with the Patriots quarterback, Mac Jones. So Sam, what is your, you were the one early beginning of the season. You're like, Mac Jones is going to be the best quarterback. I don't even remember your exact take in the AFC East. What are your takeaways on him so far this season?
I mean, predominantly positive. He started off playing pretty conservative, and each week it seems like he's opening up his arsenal and his can a little bit more, and he's definitely gaining some confidence. Patriots have done a great job. I like what Josh McDaniels done in terms of giving him the small amount of opportunities to really not, overcrowd him with thoughts about what he's going to do. It's kind of a simple, straightforward game plan. But of the 5 quarterbacks we're about to talk about, is there any argument to be made that Mac Jones is not the best of those 5 right now? I mean, I like what he's done. Granted, I think what stat I saw, like 2, how many wins do the Patriots have right now?
I think they're 4-4.
2 of them are against the Jets, which doesn't say much. But still, I like what I've seen from Mac Jones. And I think I'll continue to see the rest of the season.
Yeah, they had a good win over the Patriots or against the Chargers, which was my upset pick last week. So pat on the back for me. But I think Mac Jones, he looks like Alex Smith 2.0. Like you don't see a guy that's going to stretch the ball, stretch it deep, but he is a guy that's, has been completing a lot of percentage of his passes. He's been more of a game manager. And I think in terms of the other 4 guys we're about to talk about, he's definitely, like I've said earlier in the season, he was put in the best situation. Josh McDaniels is one of the best offensive coordinators in the NFL. Still been a guy that's been like rumored for NFL head coaching opportunities every single offseason, just hasn't taken the right one. And Mac Jones has looked pretty good. Logan, do you have any different takeaway? Do you think, this this is ceiling, or what have you been seeing from Mac Jones?
No, I really, I have to agree with both of you. There's no takeaways, but you do mention that he was put in the best situation for sure. I mean, that offensive line. Let's look at the rest of the list of rookie quarterbacks. He had a ready-made offensive line. He's got a really good running game with Damian Harris. I mean, that's a really good offense that he's put into. But a rookie quarterback that doesn't have a good offensive line, that's just really trying to make magic happen. How about Justin Fields? I want to talk about Fields and what he was able to do last week. Finally getting it done on the ground. Everyone's been clamoring, well, use your legs, Justin Fields. Well, how's 100 yards rushing sound? I mean, Justin Fields had himself a game. Bears, unfortunately, didn't get the win because their defense didn't play all that great. But Justin Fields, finally, we saw some flashes of why the Bears spent that high pick on him. And it's really encouraging. I hope Matt Nagy and the rest of the offensive staff. I mean, Matt Nagy was out with COVID. Maybe that's why he did well. I don't know. But definitely, I hope they incorporate more of the rushing attack for Fields.
Yeah, Fields finally had 100 yards rushing. So good for him against a pretty decent 49ers defense. But I'm still not necessarily sold on him. The one play, which I saw, I don't know who posted, it says play of the year with his rushing touchdown. I think that was a little bit of an overreaction, but happy to see him making some plays with his feet, because that's something that obviously a lot of people have been looking for, not only in fantasy football, but also from him in the NFL standpoint. That's why he was so highly drafted, was his playmaking ability. Still not sold on this Bears offense. They really have not looked good. All their running backs are basically injured now. And I don't know, Sam, do you think Justin Fields is on the, I mean, I think I would say he's on the uptrend, but is he necessarily, improving that much day by day? Yeah, that's up to you.
Yeah, if you're a Bears fan and you saw glimpses of brilliance last week, that's got to be a positive takeaway. But for me, it wasn't really enough to think, oh, he's really going to be able to build on this. I think the Bears right now are a mess. And honestly, I don't know if Matt Nagy and him are the best duo to be moving forward for the Bears. I think some different personnel could probably do more favor than harm. But I mean, definitely trending up in the right direction. I'd like to see what the next 2 or 3 weeks look like for him. But yeah, still a big unknown for me on Justin Fields.
I think we can all kind of agree on that. And let's talk about the first overall pick, which we could have talked about first, Trevor Lawrence. And he came off a bye this past week, did not look all too good in Seattle, taking on the Seahawks. I think they lost, 31-7. It was not a good performance. I don't know what to do with Trevor Lawrence. On one hand, I obviously know the raw talent. This guy coming out of college, one of the best quarterback prospects we've seen in some time, but it's also, another situation where some guy was just thrown into the fire and said, hey, here you go, deal with it. I just don't think I think Urban Meyer is really kind of selling Trevor Lawrence at the moment. I don't think they're getting Laviska Shenault the ball enough. He should be used in like a Deebo Samuel role. This is a guy that's very good after the catch. Then he only has like 2 catches every week. Jamal Agnew, which we might talk about a little bit later, he's looked decent. He's had a little bit of juice to him, but Marvin Jones Jr., they really don't look all that good. It doesn't help that DJ Chark isn't there, but Trevor Lawrence not looked all that great, but I'm not ready to, push the panic button. I think any Jags fan won't be pushing the panic button. This was kind of to be expected. I think they just wanted a little bit more production so early into his season.
Well, and when I was watching the game last week, I was waiting. I have Lawrence as a quarterback in a double quarterback league. And I was like, when am I going to get my touchdown? Right. And while he finally got a garbage time touchdown, it was just that. It was garbage time. They look just horrendous. And yeah, it's hard to blame him. It's hard to really isolate, okay, is this Trevor Lawrence when he has absolutely no surrounding crew? But you're right, no rapport with any of those 2 receivers who last year seemed to be guys and on the up in Shenault and Laviska. So, DJ Shark, that's the same guy twice. So yeah, it's like, what do you even make of the Jags right now? Not enough to be able to deduce anything for Trevor Lawrence because it's just been bad.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't help. Obviously, they lost James Robinson, their starting running back, pretty early on into that game. Luckily, I believe he survived like a major injury. But when you got Carlos Hyde coming out of the backfield, I don't know anyone's scared of that. So they never really could get anything going. We'll see how they do this weekend. They play the Buffalo Bills, I believe. So we'll see how that goes. That probably won't be a good showing. But Sam, we'll let you. So I would skip to Logan, but the next rookie QB we're going to talk about is Zach Wilson. So I want you to tackle this one.
Man, if I'm Zach Wilson right now, I'm a little worried because I can't say this for sure. I don't think any Jets fans have been chanting Zach Wilson in the first 7 weeks of the season, but they damn were shouting Mike White last week. And if you're him right now, your confidence has to be shaken because this guy is about to usurp you and you're about to lose fan favorite. Your head coach and Robert Saleh could have said, yeah, you know what? Good for Mike White. We want a lot from him next week, but Zach Wilson's still our guy. He didn't say that, and so at this point, reading Rich Cimini this week, I don't know if, Zach Wilson's definitely going to get the job back in 2 weeks if Mike White goes out and does what he did last week against the Colts this week. It's an awful position. So if you're Zach Wilson, you're hoping and praying for an awful Jets performance. So that job's yours. But he's obviously going to get back on the field at some point. And when he does, he needs to make every use of that opportunity. Because the last thing you want is a QB controversy, especially one in New York City. That media is just awful. So
yeah,
Zach
they
Wilson,
will.
I'm selling on Zach Wilson right now. Just jump off the ship. It's not
Yeah, they'll absolutely attack him depending on how Mike White does. I could see 2 notes. I could see, number one, this 2 to 4 week injury for Zach Wilson suddenly becoming 4 weeks and maybe seeing exactly what we got out of Mike White for a couple weeks. Oh man, as a Jets fan, it's hard to kind of process because you love Zach Wilson coming out of college. You were like so hyped for him, but then the other note, you're like, this Mike White guy looks like he's pretty decent. So Logan, what's your kind of takeaway? Because you're obviously an impartial party for the most part.
Yeah, Mike White's gonna not be a thing. It's just one of those things. It's lightning in a bottle. The Bengals didn't have enough time to prepare for him. They're just like, who's this guy? And you know what Mike White did well though? He got the ball out quick and he made that terrible Jets offensive line not too bad, right? He didn't have Trevor or Zach Wilson. He has those rookie moments where you just kind of see him back in the pocket and he's just kind of deer in headlights, just running around like not sure what to do. He's not really processed or polished enough to read defenses. Mike White did just that, but as defenses figure it out and scheme against Mike White, Zach Wilson's pure athletic talent will win him back that job. This is just one of those New York sensationalized media kind of things. Mike White is going to be one of those names that we're like, oh, remember that guy for that one game? Yeah, that's more what it's going to be.
For the most part, I agree with you, but there's one key takeaway, which is what Mike White did is he didn't play hero ball. And that's all Zach Wilson's done. Mike White did not throw a pass longer than 15 yards. And it goes to show that that's sometimes all you need to do. So when Zach Wilson gets back on the field, he needs to start playing smart, boring football, like Robert Saleh keeps saying. And until he does that, it's not going to be his team. So I'm concerned right now as a Jets fan.
He can take notes. He can take notes from Mike White, but at the end of the day, that talent is just undeniable. They didn't waste that high draft pick on Wilson for him to ride the pine. Absolutely not.
I'd agree with that. I don't think there's any way Mike White completely takes that role and rolls with it. He would literally have to play that well for probably 4 straight games. However long Wilson's out, he has to do that. One bad game and they're going to be throwing Wilson back in. Yeah, like Logan said, you don't waste all that draft capital, the number 2 pick in the draft, just to bench a guy for an unknown 3rd-year guy out of Western Kentucky. That's just not. But I think Wilson will learn from this. He has a couple of weeks to sit away from the team and just kind of process the NFL and have the game become a little bit slower and finally realize that you don't have to score a touchdown every single play. I mean, sure, it's fun to look at Patrick Mahomes last couple of years, but now you look at Patrick Mahomes, team's figuring him out. Got to be a little bit more conservative with the ball, and Zach Wilson was not doing that through 7 weeks. Finally, you saw Mike White, like Sam said, he didn't throw a lot of deep passes. Actually, didn't throw a single one. So I'm excited. We'll see how Zach Wilson does the rest of the year. We'll probably tackle this as this year progresses. But Logan, we'll let you wrap it up. Trey Lance, not much you can really say about it, but I'll let you take it away.
No, there's not, but I absolutely love, Trey Lance's raw talent. He's one of those quarterbacks that in a few years' time is going to be more, he'll be, I feel like the face of the league. That arm talent is there, the legs are there. You just can't see the field, whether it be health, whether it be Garoppolo, because Jimmy G's not a scrub. I mean, Jimmy G's certainly a serviceable quarterback. I don't think they're in tremendous rush to get Lance out on the field. They're not in desperation mode. But I definitely think if I'm a 49ers fan, I'm excited about the prospects of Lance going forward.
And I think we can wrap it up at that. There's really not a lot that you can talk about. He has only played really 1-2 career games. They're going to keep riding with Jimmy G. Jimmy G played pretty well on Sunday against the Bears, so they're going to keep riding with it. But we're going to talk a little bit about the trade deadline. We already talked about Von Miller, but there weren't really a ton of trades this deadline. I'm just curious about your guys' takeaway on Odell Beckham Jr. Like, what do you think about? Because obviously, I believe his dad went on to social media and posted like a whole clip, like 11 minutes of Baker missing him on open routes, and then you got LeBron tweeting stuff. It's almost like OBJ put out a mass media to a bunch of his friends saying, hey, you guys should get rid of this guy. What do you guys take away on Odell? Do you think, obviously you can't get moved right now, but end of season?
Well, I thought I had seen rumors about maybe even like OBJ to the Packers or something like that. But obviously that didn't happen, although it would have been amazing for my Packers bandwagon. No, I think it says a lot about OBJ as an asset. Like, what team wants him? They've seen how destructive he can be. So I think it's just as much about OBJ's lack of productivity as is, other teams really not wanting to go out and trade for him. I mean, at this point, it looks like his career really is on the peak down, and I don't think there's a chance for a resurgence at this point.
I kind of argue with it. I still do think this guy has a lot of talent. Obviously, he struggled with injuries the past couple of years, but this guy is talented. If you watch that 11-minute video, which I watched a couple minutes of it, yeah, I mean, he was wide open, and Baker would either one, not throw it to him, or two, completely miss him. So I do think OBJ has a chance. I don't think he's necessarily useless. We've seen AJ Green have an absolute resurgence with the Cardinals. So I just think he needs a new situation with a better QB. And well, that would be lovely if he was in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. But I think just with a top 5, top 10 QB, if he gets in this offseason, he can go choose who he plays for. I think he'll be much better. Logan, what about you?
Yeah, the scheme, to me, it never really made sense that the Browns got Odell Beckham, right? They're a run first, grind it out type team. And OBJ's all flash, right? Odell belongs on a team like the Bucs, where it's no risk it, no biscuit, like to where you're up 30 points and still throwing. That's the Bucs. That's the difference between the Bucs and the Browns. The Browns, they tell Baker, don't let it loose. Don't lose us the game, right? That's what the Browns are trying to play. That they like those 10 to 14 type games. And Odell is a bit of a diva. He's a distraction. As Sam said, if I'm a team, I'm not trading assets to go and get Odell. I think his best years are behind him. And yeah, it just was always a weird fit to me seeing him in the Browns.
I guess that's pretty fair. It always has kind of been a weird fit. And his best years are probably behind him. But I do think he still has obviously a bunch of talent. And I'm curious what we see at the end of the season, as well as another guy like Deshaun Watson, which we can talk about towards the end of the year. Those are guys that probably get moved this offseason, and we'll kind of see what goes on. But we're going to move on to week 9. And we're going to start with Thursday Night Football. Our New York Jets, well, me and Sam's New York Jets on a winning streak, taking on the Colts. So Logan, I'm going to have you start with this game. What is your prediction for it? The Colts are currently 10.5-point favorites, and they're at home.
Yeah, the Colts will win, and the Colts will cover. The Colts will probably win. I'd say by about 17 to 21 points. It's going to be a friendly reminder to Jets fans why you guys are a putrid dumpster fire of an organization. You get high off of one win, and you get low, and then you're back low. Mike White is going to come crashing back down to earth. It's not going to be pretty for the Jets. Everyone and their mother might be betting Jets in this one. So excited of what they saw from Mike White, but here I am to remind you the NFL is a week-to-week kind of league. Any team can win on any given Sunday. Saw that last week. Clap it up, Jets. But this is a new week. The Colts stylistically match up, so well against the Jets. They can pound Jonathan Taylor. They don't need Carson Wentz to go out there and be a hero. And Carson Wentz tried to do too much last week versus the Titans. You saw what happened. He's not going to have to do that against the Jets. Jonathan Taylor will just run all over the Jets. They're going to have grass stains all over their jersey from him.
Are you saying the Tennessee Titans and the Cincinnati Bengals did not stylistically match up well against the New York Jets? Because I think every pundit out there would have thought that they stylistically matched up well against.
What did we do to you? What did we do to you?
Let me tell you something. The Jets only beat 500 teams, plus 500 teams. The Colts are what, 3-4? So you're right. We're going to lose this one.
Yeah, we only want good teams.
It's going to be a 17 to 20 point blowout. Let's be honest, we don't know what's going to happen. But to say Mike White couldn't recreate that game plan is silly. Like I said, he didn't throw a pass for more than 15 yards. It's not like he got lucky on a couple Hail Marys to Corey Davis. He picked apart that Bengals defense. And what's to say he couldn't do it against a mediocre Colts team? It's very possible.
Sam, are you saying what I think you're saying?
Wait till the next time. I think you're right.
But Logan,
I can't take you seriously.
Logan, I understand, and you know what? I don't know what the Jets did to you. We haven't come after you for your Panthers this week. Clap it up for you guys getting a much needed victory. But you know what? I think the Jets, their strength of their defense is their front seven. So I don't know if Jonathan Taylor is due a big game. I think it's going to be guys like my man Michael Pittman Jr. I would love to see him get into the end zone, as I'll be starting him on my fantasy team. But I don't know. I don't know about this Colts team. You know, Carson Wentz, he loves to DTM, doing too much. That's his specialty. That's what he likes to do. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll see about this matchup because it's gonna be a good one. Might be also a very bad game.
No, I mean, okay. Well, let's just be glad we have football, because that's, after last year, a weird virus year, I was like, I'm thankful for Jets Colts, even as unsexy as it on paper. But they're not gonna ask Carson Wentz to do too much, and even if he is doing a little too much, Colts are good enough to come back from that.
You know,
Jets.
You don't get a lot of Jets primetime games, so make yourself some popcorn, a little baby martini, sit back and enjoy the game. Kick up your legs. It's some Thursday night.
Oh my gosh!
It's some Jets football, baby. You can't watch anything else. Sad, but true.
I'm done.
So let's do our game picks. Logan, I'll start with you. What is your score prediction? You already kind of hinted at it, but I need an official one to log.
Yeah, we're gonna go 31-10 Colts.
How do I kick someone off the broadcast? How do I do that?
No, I agree with Logan. I think the Colts are going to win, but I think it's a lot closer. And I think the Jets are going to be more prolific on offense. So I like Colts, but I like them, 28-21.
Okay. I respect it. We'll see what your upset pick is later on into the video. But my score prediction is going to be, I do think the Colts win. But I do think last week I actually picked the score exactly. I picked 24-21. Only problem was I had the wrong team with 24. This week I'll pick Colts, but it's going to be 28-27, a barn burner. That's
absolutely
my prediction.
Not.
That's my prediction.
Jets aren't putting up that many points, dogs. Temper your expectations. Temper the expectations.
Sorry, I do what I want. Well, we're going to talk about Week 8 upset picks. And I will start with Logan. We'll start with you because last week Sam cashed his Packers. I cashed my Patriots plus 200 plus winners. You picked Washington football team, and that's not on you. It's not your fault. We all fell into the Washington football team trap. But what is your pick this weekend?
Well, first I have to address the Washington football trap. It was someone blew it that game. It was blew at the kicker. How do you get so many kicks blocked? It's quite incredible to sit there and watch my upset pick go up in flames via the kicker. And oddly enough, Washington had their chances to win that game, but I'm not talking about.
But they stink.
Yeah, it was a stinky one. This one, it could just be as bad, but hey, it's in value's name. Falcons plus 215 against the Saints. I know what everyone's gonna say about the Saints. We saw them beat the Bucs last week. They're gonna be riding high. But you know what? I have a little bit of faith in this being the NFL, and weird stuff happens any given Sunday. Matt Ryan, seasoned vet, he's faced the Saints enough. And you know what? You're gonna look at this matchup on paper. You're gonna say, no way are the Falcons due, this victory. Missing Calvin Ridley, all sorts of up and down. It just doesn't look good. But I remind people, this is the NFL, and weird stuff happens. A weird divisional opponent being the Falcons, against the Saints. And we do have, we don't know if Taysom Hill is going to play. I don't know, Austin, if you know any more injury and news on that. But I know Taysom Hill was rumored to maybe be in the mix. But if it's Trevor Siemian, again, the book's written on Trevor Siemian. He's not a good quarterback. They're going to, the Bucs were caught a little off guard last week. And if Siemian starts again, Falcons defense might have something for him.
I love the pick. As I've said in my videos before, the Saints are not allowed to play good games in back-to-back weeks. And
exactly.
they've technically won 2 straight. One of them was against Geno Smith. So it does not count. That is a null and void game. So I'd like the pick, and I love the value. And for Taysom Hill, he is coming. He's concussion protocol. That's why he's missed the past couple games. I don't really know if he's going to come off it. It's really, it's hard to predict concussions. All of them are unique. So we'll see. And yeah, I'm not necessarily, I think if their offense is going to look different either way. If Taysom Hill's out there, I don't know if they'll throw a pass. They'll definitely try not to, but Trevor Siemian, they'll probably try to stretch the field a little bit more, but I like the pick. I'm going to move on to mine, and mine's a sketchy one. But last week I picked the Patriots at over plus 200 value. This week I'm riding with the Vikings plus 211 value at the Ravens. Now I understand everyone's in the comments saying, screw the Vikings. I bet on them in Sunday Night Football against Cooper Rush and the Dallas Cowboys. What the heck was that? I understand. But have you ever watched a Vikings football game? Are you a Vikings fan? Apparently you are not, because this is what the Vikings do. They lose games that they should win, and they win games they shouldn't win. That's just what they do. And so this is a game they should not win. They shouldn't have any business beating the good Ravens team. Granted, the Ravens lost the Bengals a couple weeks ago. But I think the Vikings step up. They run Dalvin Cook into the ground, and I think they got a chance to beat this Ravens team. Even though they're in Baltimore, that, like I said, this is the game the Vikings win because it makes absolutely no sense. They're like I think they're plus 5.5, plus 6.5 points. I'll take the money line, plus 211. Lock it in.
I like it. Yeah, I like the pick. It's one of those things you can never have a true lock in the NFL. So every time you think, oh yeah, the Ravens, nope. Vikings.
Which is true, because like I gave my stat last week that all 7.5 point or better favorites had all won every single game. Yeah, the Jets said no. Jets said no to that statistic.
Absolutely.
It's any given Sunday. The Vikings have a great offense. Love the value, Austin. Great pick as always.
Sam, you can continue.
Well, speaking of, I really hate when I have to lie and give misinformation on this channel. And I don't do it often. I mean, point to my pick last week. I had the Packers winning, gave you facts. It happened. But about 5 minutes ago, I just said the Jets were going to lose to the Indianapolis Colts 20-28. Well, guess what? That's not going to happen. The Jets right now are sitting at plus 420 odds against the Colts. The Colts, by the way, not an impressive football team by any stretch of the imagination outside of Jonathan Taylor, maybe a little bit of Michael Pittman. I haven't seen enough to really like the Colts. At 420 against the Jets team that just is rolling so hot, came off beating the Bengals, right? No one expected that. How can you not say, I'm going to throw some money on that? We heard about the guy who bet on Mike White being the highest, most passing yards last week, turned 1,000 into like 125,000. That's what we do as Jets fans, all right? Jets over the Colts, I'm locking it in. Let's reverse that and let's put some more sugar on it. Jets beating the Colts, 35.
Love it.
I like it. Lock it in.
I love the value. Put on my hat. I'm all amped up, man. We're back, baby.
There's some dumb ways to spend your money in the world, but betting on the Jets to win 2 games in a row is like crumpling up your money, throwing it in the trash can, and then lighting the trash can on fire. This upset pick, play it back next week. We'll just make you look like a clown.
But
There's no chance.
If we're going to approach this with some rational thinking, the Jets had nothing given nobody anything to think of and base a smart bet on in the first 7 weeks of the season, right? And then you see what they do last week. If all you have is this performance from Mike White to look at, what's there to be concerned about? I mean, it was a whole nother offense this past week. So yeah, this is not the Jets of the first 7 weeks of the season. This is a different animal. So based on that and what we saw against the Bengals, and I tell you what, that front seven on defense does look pretty good sometimes. At that value, don't call this Jets over Colts. Just see a team that just beat a really good team. Let's not put names and mascots to anything here. Value alone, I like it. It's an unknown. Would I be surprised if Mike White throws 100 yards and 4 picks? Absolutely not. But he might do the same thing again. And so plus 420, quadruple your money, guys. Put a $10 bet on it.
Logan did say, there's worse ways to spend money, and you're probably throwing away your money, but you know what you aren't throwing your money on? Investing in Moonbet, our sponsor of the podcast. Because Moonbet, we love Moonbet here. We love them so much. They're always supporting the podcast. So if you haven't invested in Moonbet, we've done some videos with them, sponsored by them. We're sponsoring the podcast. We appreciate them. Shout out to Moonbet. But yeah, we're riding the Jets into the ground, and you can't tell me otherwise. But we're gonna move on, and we're no more Jets talk. I promise. The rest of the podcast. So you probably already clicked off by now. But bold fantasy predictions. Last week, we all sucked. We all were real bad. Now, mine was the Jets to not score. Sam picked Michael Thomas, who obviously didn't play. And Logan, what was yours? Joe Burrow to be a top 3 quarterback in fantasy. So not great. But Sam, since yours didn't technically, but you pushed, we'll let you lead this one. What's your bold fantasy prediction for week 9?
Yeah, I don't really think I can take an L last week because Michael Thomas didn't play. That should be a standing bold prediction for whatever his first week. So there should be a week where I have 2. But moving into this week, we already kind of touched upon the game. Big time matchup, Packers Chiefs. I think, kind of like I alluded to in the past, I think the Chiefs are going to kind of find some chemistry and maybe have a little bit more of a high-powered offense. And I think that would directly impact Travis Kelce, who is still Travis Kelce. We all know that. He really hasn't been all that too impacted. However, in his last couple games, he's coming off a real slow one last week. Only 4 receptions for 27 yards. Week before that, he only had 65 yards. He hasn't had a touchdown in the last 3 weeks. So I think he's going to come back with a strong performance. I think while the Chiefs probably still lose, I think they're going to find their rhythm. So I like him for something like 7-8 receptions, over 100 yards and a touchdown. I think he'll have another really stout, true to form Travis Kelce performance.
Okay, I can respect it. And if Michael Thomas returns, we will allow that to be your second one. I do not know his injury status at the moment, so we'll see. We'll see about that one. But Logan, I'll let you start. You go next.
Okay, so that was pretty bold, Sam. With how defenses are defending the Chiefs, though, I could see it. Right, it's somewhat realistic. Mine is completely out of left field. It's like, what the heck? We're talking about Jamal Agnew on this podcast. Who? Yes, the former Lions receiver. Yeah, he was mostly known as a special teams kind of gadget guy. But you know what? I'm predicting in Jaguars versus Bills, Jamal Agnew will be the highest scoring fantasy wide receiver in that game. I'm not okay, maybe player non-quarterback, because I think Josh Allen might be able to do it. But the way is really good. And you know what? They're not getting Laviska Shenault anymore. I don't know what he did to be put in timeout like that. But the slot is how you attack the Buffalo Bills. I think we're going to see a lot of creativity with Jamal Agnew. He's one of those DFS players that we're not always talking about DFS on here, but he could be a sneaky play this week.
I like it. I've been considering picking some of his props in my videos because I've been seeing, I've seen him in some interviews. He's a funny guy, and they've been targeting him a lot and getting him the ball in his hands, and he's made some pretty impressive catches so far this season. So all he had to do is get out of Detroit, and look at him go. But my bold prediction this week, it's a spicy one. I'm doing Tua Tagovailoa to be the number one scoring QB in fantasy football. Now, he did it 2 weeks ago, and then he played against the Buffalo Bills defense, which has been very good this season and really kept them in that game, sort of. I mean, the Dolphins defense looked like one of the best defenses in the league against Josh Allen up until the fourth quarter, and then they just fell apart. But Tua, like I said, number one fantasy scoring QB this week. He did it 2 weeks ago, and you look at it, the Texans are bad. They are not a good team, and this is quietly a team that Tua, they were trying to consider trading for Deshaun Watson, and he would have probably been traded to the Texans team. So maybe this little bit of, you guys should have traded for me. I'm giving you a big game, 4 touchdowns, 0 picks.
See it. It's good. Texans defense they look so bad against the Rams. Oh my goodness. It was atrocious. It was an atrocious performance. I could definitely see Tua having himself a day.
Yeah, I mean, if you had Rams to cover that game, I'm sorry to you, but that was a brutal beat. But yeah, they really. What's up?
Well, no, I just think you said QB1. You might want to say QB2 because Mike White plays Thursday night. But it's okay. I see what you're saying.
Yes, no more. That's my fault. QB2. You are right. You are so right. No, but the Texans, yeah, you're right, Logan. They look terrible. I took Matthew Stafford's under 35.5 passing attempts. Luckily, he got benched midway through the third, basically, or else he would have smashed that over. Their offense just does 3 plays and then throws and then hikes and then punts it. But I hope they get Tyrod Taylor back. That would be, maybe give some Brandon Cooks fantasy owners a little bit of life. Although I do think he had a decent game this past weekend, but you can't have much faith trotting out of Texans, any player on the Texans so far. So we're going to move on. We're going to recap. We're going to give our quick predictions for Sunday and Monday Night Football, and then we'll get out of here. First off, with Sunday Night Football. This game had a lot more juice to it up until Sunday, really Monday morning. It's the Titans versus the Rams. And obviously Derrick Henry, everyone knows the news, likely be out for the rest of the season, at least, I don't know. There's a bunch of different timelines out there, but if he returns, it won't be until the end of the year. Titans versus Rams. What are your guys' takeaway on this? The Rams are 7.5 point favorites. Logan, I'll let you start. And what do you do with Derrick Henry if you roster him in fantasy? You can answer that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Derrick Henry, just because he probably got you so far, into the season, you just gotta kind of have to keep him, kind of like Christian McCaffrey owners, just kind of have to keep him on your bench. Maybe your league has an IR slot, and you can use him in there. But I just see the Rams. The Rams are a juggernaut right now, and they will win and they will cover this one against the Titans.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you, Logan. It's just too big of an unknown right now and what that backfield for the Titans is going to look like. I mean, Derrick Henry was the offense, right? Face of the franchise, face of everything. And now he's gone. So it's too big of an unknown. I wouldn't be betting on the Titans. I think the Rams come out and steamroll over them.
Yeah, I can't help but kind of agree with you guys. The game is in SoFi Stadium too. The Titans normally, you think about, the Titans did beat, good teams like the Bills and Chiefs. I don't know if we'll consider them good, sure. but both those games were in Tennessee. This game's in LA. So I'm going to roll with the Rams in this one. I just think the loss of Derrick Henry is big. Now, Adrian Peterson will be curious to see, are you guys trying to rush to the waiver wire to pick up AP, or you kind of just waiting to see? I mean, I assume he'll be a number one waiver priority ad for a lot of leagues, but are you rushing to pick him up, or are you just going to, let someone else deal with the Adrian Peterson show? 36-year-old running back.
I would have rather it been an unknown, because if it's some like Dearness Johnson, you're like, all right, we'll throw this guy a bone. AP, as much as we love him and as great of a player as he is, I just don't see him being able to come out fantasy wise with that prolific of a performance. He might still be impactful, but I don't think he's going to be able to put up those numbers. So I really wish it was like some unknown fresh leg guy who we'd be, all jumping to pick up this week. So I'm not too high on AP, but I like running backs based on the position and the situation for the team. And there's no better place to have, a one-trick pony. It's the Tennessee Titans that run the football. So who knows? I could beat my words tomorrow or next week if he has a great performance. I'm not too convinced right now.
Logan?
Yeah, I'm not. He's going to be very touchdown dependent, right? Unlike Derrick Henry, I don't think Peterson's got the explosiveness into him, and like Sam said, he's got some wear and tear on that body for sure, and he's not a spring chicken at all. No, I'm probably not rushing, and maybe if I'm in a super deep league, I'd rush to get him, but no, I don't see a ton of upside there.
Yeah, I don't think, especially not out of the gates against a very good Rams defense, which they could get behind the sticks and be down pretty quickly, and then AP is completely out of it. So I do think he's going to be very touchdown dependent, like you said, Logan, and be very game script dependent. And that's kind of how Derrick Henry was, but he still had some juice. Even if they were down a bunch of points, they'd still run him into the ground for whatever reason. But yeah, I don't know how you can get excited for Adrian Peterson. It will be a slow start to his if he does get a ton of snaps this weekend. I do think Jeremy McNichols might be sneaky. I think he has a decent chance to, I think people might think, this Adrian Peterson show, but Jeremy McNichols, very good runner in college. So we'll see if they start to use him more now that Derrick Henry's gone. Obviously, he doesn't have a lot of rushing attempts this season, but there's no real reason to give it to Jeremy McNichols out of the backfield, except unless you're passing it to him when you have Derrick Henry running the ball. So we'll see how that goes. I think we're all on the Rams and we'll ride with that. Let's wrap up Monday Night Football. It's the Bears versus Steelers. What do you want me to say? My prediction for this game, I think the Steelers steamroll them. I'm not a big fan of I like Justin Fields, not a big fan of the Bears as an organization, as a whole coaching staff. So I just don't think they're going to get it done. I was really praying that they would get Allen Robinson out of here, but alas, they did not. He's still there. So eventually you'd think, we'll start to use Allen Robinson, and maybe he has a big game on Monday Night Football and everyone's fantasy football benches, which would be fitting, seeing him go off then. But I'm not a big fan of it. Steelers have finally been getting the ground game going. Najee Harris looking pretty good. Deontay Johnson obviously out there. So I'll ride with the Steelers in this one. What about you guys?
What's the spread? Do you got the spread offhand?
I will find it. It is going to be Steelers are 6.5 point favorites. They're at home.
Oddly enough, I think that I could see the Bears potentially covering this one. This one could be a little bit of a field goal, just an ugly type grind game. But yeah, I mean, I think TJ Watt is absolutely going to feast on that Bears offensive line. Fields is going to be running for his poor life. I mean, it's good. The Bears, the only shot they can have, in this game is getting that ground game involved, which has looked pretty decent the past few weeks. They absolutely are going to have to just play one of those grinded out type slugfest games.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to run the ball a ton and hopefully force Big Ben into some turnovers. That's how you beat them. If you make, Big Ben a turnover machine, you're obviously going to have a better chance of winning. But Sam, what about you? What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Big Ben really hasn't looked all too impressive this year. But last week, I almost felt like he was going to say, I still own you to the Cleveland Browns, right? Because he got it done. And the Steelers are one of those teams that just, always play teams tough. And there's nothing to really get too excited about the Bears. So, yeah, I like the Steelers, and kind of agree with you more so, Austin, than Logan, that I think it's going to be a dominant showing, and I think they're going to get it done.
Yeah, if there's anything that you can say wrong about the Steelers defense, it's that their corners haven't been necessarily that great. They struggled at the beginning of the year, now getting a little bit better, but Justin Fields hasn't really shown the ability to stretch the top off the defense, really complete a lot of deep passes, or really even passes in general to people like Allen Robinson or Darnell Mooney. So I think we're all right at Steelers, whether or not they cover this spread. We'll see. And I'll have a separate video on that one. But any other final takeaways for this week? Anything you guys are looking forward to? Any other big matchups? Logan, you think your Panthers are winning this weekend?
It's a little bit of a trap spread. I'm not even gonna lie. If you're just looking at it, you're like, take Patriots off a good win against the Chargers. But you know what? I don't even know who's starting at quarterback for Carolina. Could it be a concussed Darnold or could it be PJ Walker? I don't know, but I'm not gonna guarantee a Panthers win. You're not gonna sucker me into that one.
I'm not trying to sucker you. I agree with you. I think the spread is very trap-like. It's only 4 points.
Yeah.
And after what the Panthers have done so far the past couple of weeks, granted they got a big win last weekend, but it's not necessarily a team that inspires you a lot. And I think they should be without CMC again. So I don't know. Maybe I'll pick the Patriots, but I could see the Panthers sneakily covering this game, even winning it. This is a game that the spread is what it is, and there's not much you can do about it. Anything else you're looking forward to, Sam, before we wrap it up?
These poor viewers have already heard me talk about the Jets enough tonight. So no, I will end on that.
That sounds about fitting. So we'll wrap it up. That is the podcast. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you haven't downloaded the podcast, go download it. The link is down below in the description. We appreciate you guys, and subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. We're almost at 12,000 subscribers. So shout out to you guys. Click that like button on the video too. Drop a comment down below with your upset pick for week 9, and we'll catch you guys again next week. Peace.